So what do you hear in those Old Testament texts? What, any of that sound familiar from Revelation?
Yeah, the animals.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, John is drawing on a rich well of visions of the glory of God. And especially for his, trained Jewish ears, and certainly, and others, they will recognize immediately who this is, and where John's at, right? So he's within a long stream of tradition about the glory of God. There are others, but those give you an idea, right? Those give you a feel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Back to share. Notice right away, a door stood open, and there was a throne. There's an immediate contrast here to the letters that we talked about last week. Remember in Laodicea, Jesus said, "I'm standing at the door knocking. Hello, somebody, hello. Can somebody let me in?" Note the contrast. With that, we have a door, a church door that is closed to Jesus in chapter 3, which may actually be an interesting vision of this week's news that we just talked about. Contrast that with there's a door open in heaven and John is invited in. And what he sees is not Satan's throne, the one in Pergamum, but God's throne. And around the throne, of course, the 4 living creatures, the 24 elders, there's all of this splendor and awe-inspiring, eye-popping beauty. And of course, it's all holy, holy, holy. You know this, right, Lutherans? Yeah. All the saints adore thee, casting down their golden crowns around the glassy sea. More on that in a minute. Cherubim and seraphim falling down before thee, which wert and art and evermore shalt be. That just comes straight from here. That our great hymn comes straight from this vision. There's a rainbow, which calls to mind, among other things, of course, Genesis 9. And I think that's a really important little detail. Why? What do you remember from the original story of the rainbow?
I will not destroy the world again with water like this.
Right.
This is a new
Promise.
opportunity, a new promise.
Right. It's the sign of the promise that God will not destroy the world again, which, it sure looks like God's going to do that for the next 12 to 13 chapters. But the rainbow says no. I mean, it's going to get ugly, but total destruction, God has promised, not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, there's another tradition with the rainbow, of course, that it is the war bow, right? It's the flaming war bow. Okay. And so if it's stretched out, the arc goes away from you when you fire, right?
Right.
Okay. And the bow is stretched. But notice the position of the rainbow in the sky. If the arrow gets shot, it's not going to hit heaven, or it's not going to hit earth, it's going to hit heaven. And so the first one to get hit with the war bow, now that God has hung it up in the sky, if anybody's going to get hit, it's heaven, not us. The Lamb. The first one who gets hit is the Lamb. Okay. So you've got the rainbow, which looked like an emerald, which I think he got from Wizard of Oz. I'm not sure. Thanks for laughing and paying attention. There's a sea of glass, something like a sea of glass. Pure crystal glass was almost impossible to produce at this time, and so it was very rare and beautiful and clearly a symbol of incredible power. To be able to create an entire sea of it is part of the overwhelming effect of, oh, this is a different realm, this is a different reality. And so a sea of glass is not only impossibly glorious, it is also quite calm. Like you could walk on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
The sea, and keep this in mind throughout this book, the sea, like in Job, like in the Psalms, like in Genesis, the sea is the primal force of chaos.
Mm-hmm.
The miracle of creation is that dry land appeared. The sea went back, and space was created for dry land and order and the safety necessary for life to happen. Human life, animal life. The four creatures, none of them are fish. The sea represented chaos and sometimes even evil. This is a sea of glass. It is under control. It is beautiful. It is expensive. This is heaven. You have a sea of glass. Ah. 7 spirits, and 24 thrones. Part of what's important about those is that they tell you that the church and God's people, Israel as well as the church, are represented there. This is the throne room of the entire universe. God is in charge of everything. God does not have to share power, but God does. And so the 7 spirits from chapter 1 are here again and remind us that the church, the church is present in the room. Backdrop now. Around a different throne, the Parthian king Herodotus famously placed his crown at Nero's feet, according to Tacitus, the Roman historian, as to say that, oh, my little kingdom of Parthia is subservient to and pays homage to the great Roman Empire. Mm. And so in order to, show deference to true power, the king laid his crown at the feet of Nero. Also, Roman emperors had lictors, which would, they were kind of Roman imperial secret service in a way. They would protect, they would do crowd control, they would serve, they would be attendants, they would do all kinds of, work for the emperor and attend with worship and all of that. Well, there were 12 of them until Domitian showed up, who doubled the force to 24. So Domitian at this time was known to be surrounded by 24 lictors and greeted with, "Worthy are you, our Lord and God." Oh, oh. So we also have political commentary here. Yes, we do. Where John, who is exiled for a reason, is saying the emperor is a phony knockoff parody of the real thing. Why 4 creatures? Well, they represent creation, which means, for one thing, really, that's very important. Let's go back to basics, right? John 3:16, God so loved the world. Not everybody in Christianity has accepted or gotten that back then or since. We've got a lot of remember the Left Behind series, and there's an awful lot of escapist theology out there. That this world is going to be destroyed, Revelation says so, and then the new world, and then we all go up into heaven into the new world. That's actually not what happens. The New Jerusalem comes down, we do not go up. Heaven comes here, and creation matters to God. God made it, God loves it, God saves it. And so creation is not just done away with, it is transformed, and it is saved. And it is represented in the throne room because creation is important. And it's represented by the sort of the traditional apex of each of the 4 categories of creature in rabbinic literature. These, by the way, of course, got later associated by the church with the 4 gospel writers, you may know. So, moving down, the lion was the king of the jungle, right? The lion is the greatest of the wild animals. It's been associated with Mark. The ox is the greatest of the domestic animals, associated with Luke. The human, as the humanity being its own sort of category, with Matthew. And then the eagle, the greatest of the birds, has been associated with John. We won't get into all of that, but they are there too. Now, what does God look like?
Lamb?
Yeah, we're getting there. That's Christ. What does God look like?
Light?
Yeah. And the one seated there looks like? The one seated there looks like jasper and carnelian. It was a trick question. You all got it right by not answering. Good job. Good job. John is intentionally setting us up here. Shows us the throne room, shows us all the stuff around the throne. Creation is there, the 24 are there, rainbow, glassy sea, all of this kind of stuff. The one seated on the throne looks like jasper and carnelian, but you don't really get a picture because it's God, right? Who could see God and live? Back to Moses, right? God said, I will pass. I'm going to turn around and pass by. You can glimpse my backside. Anything more than that will kill you. And so we don't actually get to see what God looks like because it's God. That's one reason. But the other reason you jump to, it's the Lamb. The way that God has chosen to appear is Christ. So we won't get into any speculation about what God looks like because God has made the decision, this is what I look like. I look like Christ. He is what I look like. In John's understanding. Now, the one seated on the throne has a biblio, a book, or a scroll, depending on how it's translated. But it's the word in Greek is biblia, from which we get Bible. Yeah. So the biblia, it might have been one of those fan-folded ones that you would kind of print on this side of the page, print on this side of the page, fold them together, and then you have two printed pages facing each other, and then you would just keep folding like a fan, and then these would be sealed together. So if you break one seal, you can read part of the document, the biblia, but you need to break another seal to read the next part, and then the next seal to read the next part, and so on and so on. So it might have been that kind of book. This one has 7 seals for a couple reasons. There's almost always more than one reason with John, as you're learning. One is it's 7, right? So it's complete. It's an authorized text because it's sealed, and it would be sealed with the signet ring or signature ring with the wax on there. And so it's actually, this is a signed document. This is authorized. Roman wills, the last will and testament in Rome, Roman wills by law needed to be signed with 7 seals. So this is kind of like it's God's will. This is what is supposed to happen at the end. This thing right here. I'm ready to have my plan, my estate, my will executed. Well, who's going to be the executor of heaven's estate? Who's going to make it happen? Who's worthy of this?
Jesus.
Yeah. So the breaking, Catherine and Justo Gonzalez, right? The breaking of the seals in heaven will set things in motion on earth. And at first, no one is found who can do that. That is why John weeps bitterly. He does so not because of frustrated curiosity. Ooh, what's in there? Ooh. But because he realizes that without someone to open the seals, God's plan will not move forward. So we're stuck. And if God's plan is not going to move forward, then Rome's just going to continue to march on. The empire is just continue to have its way. People are going to get exiled. Christians are going to get persecuted and killed. Things are not going to get any better unless somebody can open this thing. Do not weep, because the Lion of Judah is worthy to open it. Oh, the Lion of Judah, which over time became a predominant image for the Messiah, which, by the way, is the Hebrew word that means Christ, the Anointed One. It comes out of Genesis 49. Also, the root of David, which comes out of Isaiah 11. Do not weep. See, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has conquered so that he can open the scroll and its 7 seals. Great. What does a lion look like? Come on. You guys know this one, right?
Big cat.
Big cat. Yep. Power. What's that?
Powerful.
Yeah. What does power look like? Well, it looks like a lion, right? Like, what does power look like in a jungle? It looks
Danger.
like a lion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, John has now set the stage, and remember, you are hearing this in worship. Okay, you're not reading it, you're not Bible studying it with a PowerPoint. You are hearing this in worship. So you have this incredible, mind-blowing, imaginative scene of heaven. Sea of glass, jasper, carnelian, things shining and exploding. This incredible glory, and then a scroll in the hand. Who is worthy to open the scroll? Do not weep. The Lion of Judah. Great. Then I looked and I saw the lion. There he is.
Good lamb.
Yeah. It's a dead lamb chop. This is the Lion of Judah. John looks at the appointed place in the vision where the lion was supposed to appear, and what he sees is a slaughtered lamb. Although readers of the Bible may have become so accustomed to it that the effect is lost to us, this is perhaps the most mind-wrenching rebirth of images in literature. The slot in the system reserved for the lion has been filled by the Lamb of God. It's used, the Greek word that John uses is the diminutive. Lauren Arteaga comes up, sometimes for children's time with her little stuffed lamb named Lammy.
Mhm.
That's the word. Lammy.
Lammy.
Little lambkins, right? If you're British, right? Lammy. The roaring mighty Lion of Judah, the big Messiah, God's big bad strong man, is Lammy. And Lammy has 7 horns, which is not so much a plastic surgery concern as it is, again, another image, right? 7 horns. Horns mean power. He's got complete power. He's got 7 eyes, wisdom. He's got complete power, complete wisdom. There are 7 accolades thrown. You are, worthy to receive power, wealth, wisdom, might, honor, glory, blessing. 7 accolades. So he's got complete glory. And this is how God chooses to appear. We don't see a face on the throne. What does God look like? What does power look like? That. And when heaven sees it, the place goes nuts. The place just erupts. It just goes nuts. The first wave, you have the 4 creatures on behalf of creation, the 24 elders on behalf of all of God's people, holding the bowls which have the incense, which are the prayers of the saints. So your prayers and the prayers of the faithful in Sardis and Pergamum and Thyatira are there. They are part of the song. Joined by many angels, joined by every creature in heaven, on the earth, under the earth, in the sea, in the heart of the primal chaos. They're praising too. The underworld. Even like hell itself is in on the song. Every living thing. All creation. And the Greek word for all means all. Like all. Are erupting in praise because of the glory, the awe-inspiring, overpowering, massive power of God. That. The Lamb, the one who died on the cross. What does power look like? And what does that mean for Christians who are living in this world? It's a very different vision of power than we get regularly inundated with in commercials and textbooks, right? Power looks like a dead lamb. Power is love that is courageous enough and powerful enough to relinquish all control and all power. And to utterly and completely lose it all. Losing it all is winning. Getting killed is conquering. It's a complete reversal and redefinition of reality. The whole book is built on this turn.
It reminds me of the young people that were protesting in Tiananmen Square.
Mm.
And they stood up for themselves. They did. And they got mowed down. So, it works ultimately for heaven, but it's awful hard to stand in front of a tank.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is, because it goes against everything, every self. I mean, the one instinct that we have is to protect ourselves. We do. So that means that we have to fight that. At any rate, that's my reaction. It's good. Maybe I can do that when I'm dead, but it would be hard for me to do now.
That is such a good image. I mean, that one figure standing in front of the tank that's going to get mowed down. John would say, yeah, that's Christ.
It is.
That's the picture of Christ.
Yeah.
And it's not And I think we go, well, okay, that's how God wanted it to be, and that's God's will. I don't think that the starting place is not God's going to plan this out and God's got the tank and needs somebody to stand in front of it. In order to sort of protect God's power, we tend to think that way sometimes in the church. But this grows out of an actual experience of Jesus showed up and the tank rolled him over. Wait, that's not supposed to happen.
That's right.
And so the experience then leads to the theology of, wait a minute, why did this go this way? And so the violence in Revelation that is coming, the starting place is not God sitting in God's Carnelian office thinking, hey, let's see, what's the best way to do this? I know, bloodshed and suffering. Let's plan a whole bunch of that. Write it all down, put it in the book, and then somebody can execute it and make it happen. The violence is what empire does in order to maintain control, whether that's Rome, China in 1989, or whatever. It's the MO for empire. It's the given reality. What Pastor John is trying to say is there's a deeper power than that. And yes, that violence is real. And yes, that injustice is real. And that guy is stronger than that tank. Because any tank can run over any human being, but not any human being can stand up to a tank. Real power, real power, real strength is willing to be vulnerable and weak and even die for a truth that is stronger and for love that is stronger than political might. And heaven recognizes that and worships accordingly. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It's profound and jarring.
When I was in high school, my senior English teacher used to put sayings on the board. And I just thought of the one about power. As I remember, this came from Abe Lincoln. Maybe it didn't, but just one sentence. Any man can stand adversity. If you want to test a man, give him power.
Uh-huh.
I've never forgotten that. I apply it to women too.
Yeah, good. So for those of us who are followers of Christ, where, how do we exercise power? How do we deal with the power that we do have? Think about that this week. Homework. Read chapters 6 through 12, and we'll discuss those next week. And if you are an overachiever and want to do more, because I want to ground this a little bit more and give you another way into this idea, watch or read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which is the first, C.S. Lewis's book about Narnia. He had 7 of them. Not accidental, by the way, because, he was on to what John was doing. But there's a movie version that's pretty good of this from not so long ago, or you can read it. But the climax of that movie is it aligns with the lion who is the lamb.
Aslan.
Aslan, exactly. And the deeper magic. So, if you don't have time for that, just read 6 to 12.
Okay. I take it that's a Dodger up there and not a Cub.
It is a Dodger, yeah. It's Jackie Robinson. Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of that, can you explain what was on the stole you put on this morning in the service?
Yeah, that was my Cubs stole. Before 4 years ago, I used to refer to it as my funeral stole.
Oh.
Oh,
Oh, bad.
yeah. But a family, yeah. A colleague of mine made a stole out of Cubs fabric, so it was the Cubs logo and Chicago Cubs, and made a stole out of it and gave it to me. So yes, I have a Cubs stole. And Danielle Fairley has already asked, well, where's Pastor needs a Dodger stole.
Yeah.
But
I think
privately
Lord
asked-
Golnick.
Let's see, I asked who was going to work at the 7 mil.
Oh. That was
So, yeah.
great line.
those 12 years in Chicago have are part of the story.
Okay.
So are we done here?
I think
All right.
I think so,
Thank you.
unless there's any last call for questions or thoughts. All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
I thank all of
Thank
you.
you. Bye, everybody.
Have a
Bye.
wonderful week. See you next Sunday.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Marie.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Marie.
Bye-bye.
Mario, what's that all about?
Yeah, there's something to be
There's
said
some
there.
magic. Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna sign off. Boy, did it take me a long time to figure out how to get to this. This morning I went through, it was like learning Zoom all over again. I don't know what happened. And so we were 6 minutes late getting in here.
Well, I was like a minute late because I was in last week's meeting
Oh, okay.
and I just clicked on the wrong one and
Oh, you did it then.
I did. Yeah. So, don't. I saw somebody was waiting. I'm like, oh, okay. So I clicked and went through and we talked and, wait a minute. Why isn't anybody joining? Where is everybody?
Okay.
So,
See ya.
all right. See you. See you later.